those days, so it feels super cozy. But it's also like, come on now, I want the sun to come back. This is a typical British summer. It's wild and annoying. This is what we have to deal with as Brits. Really unpredictable weather. And I'm grateful for the rain because we did not have a lot for a long period of time, but now it's like, can we just have the sun back please, because it's starting to feel like autumn again, and it's June now. Like, anyway, that's just my little moan, a typical British moan about the weather. Let me know what the weather's like where you are. I would love to know where everyone's from, what they're experiencing at this time of year. So today's video is going to be a story about a haunting that happened to somebody. I originally was going to do a different haunting video that's from the UK, but I stumbled across this story that I'd never heard before, and I was intrigued by it, and I thought it was actually quite compelling, because the story that I was going to share from the UK, I'm not convinced that it's real. Like, I'm in two minds about it, because there are parts of it that seem either completely false or really over exaggerated, whereas this story, a lot of it seems like it genuinely could happen, because I feel like when people experience like ghost or poltergeist activity, it's usually quite mundane stuff that happens, right? Like a door opening or these little things that all add up, and that's what this story is kind of like. So it's not like the most insane story necessarily, although there are a few moments where you're like, oh my gosh, if that's real, that's very scary. So yeah, I just thought I would share it, so let's dive in to today's story. In summer of 2008, 24-year-old Jennifer Patterson was ready to start a new chapter in her life. After she'd graduated high school, she was living in a town just a couple of blocks away from her parents, and she was into horses, but where she was currently living, she had to board her horses at a stables, and her dream was to have a house with enough land that she could keep her horses at home. And then one day, her dad approached her saying that he had talked to a guy in his local town that said that his own dad had just passed away and they were looking to sell his property, which was a little 2-bedroom house, but it had 5 acres and a barn, so it would be perfect for Jennifer to keep her horses. Her dad said that the price they're asking is actually pretty cheap considering the amount of land you're getting with the house, and thought it would be worthwhile for her friends from work asked Jennifer if she could come to take a look at the house, and Jennifer was like, yeah, sure, let's go take a look around together. Jennifer explained that in order to get into the house, you would have to go through the garage. So you walk through the garage, and then at the back of the garage would be a door into the house. And from that doorway, it was one long hallway all the way through the house with a bathroom at the end. As Jennifer's friend walks into the house, she asks Jennifer, who else is here? And Jennifer's like, nobody, it's just us. And her friend says, well, I just saw somebody walk across the hall at the back. And she also just kind of kept commenting that she had weird vibes in this house, like she felt like she was being watched. And Jennifer thought that was a bit of a weird thing to say, but she didn't really pay too much attention to it because, you know, it's just one person saying they get a weird vibe and they saw something. It's not really enough to worry you. So she dismisses it, and over the next few days, Jennifer starts to begin moving all her belongings into the house. Whilst she's moving in, she goes into the master bedroom, and she said that it smelt a bit like a nursing home in there because it was an old couple that had lived there for a long time. So she's in the master bedroom sorting things out, and then she turns around to go out of the room and she gets hit with a really big whiff of aftershave. She describes it being like Old Spice, if you know that aftershave. It's quite a common one for older gentlemen to wear. So she just all of a sudden smells this aftershave out of nowhere. She didn't notice that smell before. She then goes across the hall to the other bedroom, and again when she turns around, she got another whiff of this aftershave. She said that it wasn't a constant smell, it was only when she would turn around and get a whiff of it, almost like someone was following her, and that when she turned around she would like be bumping into them or something. But obviously she immediately tries to find the source of this smell, so she goes into the bathroom and looks through the medicine cabinet to see if there's any old aftershave that's been left there. But that was empty. And then she checked the hallway closet, and that was also completely empty. She couldn't find any old aftershave lying around anywhere. But again, this wasn't like anything major, it didn't scare her, and she just put it to the back of her mind and continued moving into her new home. However, once she was fully settled in, strange activity began to occur. On several different occasions, Jennifer said that she would come home from work and hear people talking inside the house. She said that she didn't have a working radio in the house at the time, and the TV was off when she heard these voices. She said there were times where she'd be in bed and would hear people talking in the bedroom across from hers. She said you couldn't hear the voices well enough to hear what was being said, just that you could hear like muffled voices, but she could never really gauge how far away they were. She'd just hear people talking and then turn around to look to see where it was coming from, and it would stop. Aside from the unexplainable voices, Jennifer often heard the sound of old music, but again could never find a source for it, and it would happen really randomly when she was in bed sometimes, or just like doing the dishes. All of a sudden she would hear what she described as twangy old country music, like something from the 30s or 40s, and she could never figure out where this music was coming from. Again, she's on 5 acres of land, so she doesn't have any really close neighbours. She said she would look out the window to see if maybe like cars were driving past, and it would just be an empty road. The TV was off, she didn't own a radio, so she just didn't know where it was coming from. But again, despite all or anything like that, and Jennifer decides to throw herself a housewarming party. One of her friends invited a friend of hers and her boyfriend along to the party, and when they were at the party, her friend's boyfriend approaches Jennifer and says, "There's people in this house." And Jennifer was like, "Yeah, we're having a party, there's a lot of people." And he was like, "No, they're not alive, they're dead. A man and a woman, and they don't want you here. This is their house." Jennifer was quite taken aback by this comment, and it almost sounded like she was a little bit offended by it because she'd never met this man before, and here he is telling her this is not your house. So she was just like, "This is my house, I'm having a party, so just chill out." And then Jennifer said she didn't see him for the rest of the night, despite the fact that his girlfriend was still around. He just completely disappeared. She never saw him again. The next day, Jennifer tells her friend about what happened between this friend's boyfriend and her and what he'd said to her. She said, "Your friend's boyfriend is a little weird," and she responded saying, "Yeah, he's a psychic and he told me what he said to you." So Jennifer asks her friend, "Well, do you think he's legit?" And she's like, "I don't know." So again, Jennifer just kind of blows this off because she's just bought her dream home and she's determined to live a peaceful life in her lovely new home. Around this time, one of Jennifer's co-workers approached her and explained that she knew the previous owners of her house. She said it belonged to a man called Carl Johnson and that he had built the house himself for his wife, and eventually they went on to have 4 children together, and they lived in that house for decades, and that they were a very religious family. Eventually Carl's wife ended up passing away in what was now Jennifer's bedroom, and once his wife died, he was completely distraught and heartbroken and just became very isolated. He'd just pretty much stay at home, sitting in the living room, mourning her death until he eventually passed away himself, which turned out to be exactly a year before Jennifer moved in. Jennifer said that she knew that the parents had died, but she did not know that they died in the house when she agreed to buy it. So that information wasn't disclosed to her. So upon finding out this information, she thought, well, if it's haunted, it's likely going to be the people that lived here before because they loved this house. And so, again, she didn't seem too concerned about that. It kind of just made sense. But the activity in her home slowly began to increase. One day, Jennifer noticed the attic door wasn't shut properly. So she went over and shut it, and then pulled on it to make sure it was securely closed. Then later on that day, she was watching TV, and her dogs were sleeping next to her on the couch, when all of a sudden the attic door opens violently and hits the doorstop behind it with a bang. Her dogs immediately jump up from their sleep and run over to the attic door and start barking. And all the hair is stood up on the back of their necks, and they are just super on guard, like a typical dog being like, "What is going on here?" barking their heads off. So naturally, the bang from the door scared Jennifer, and then seeing her dogs react this way also scared her because she said that her dogs were super chill. They barely barked when they were at home. Like, barking for them just wasn't something that they did often at all. So seeing this reaction from them really kind of worried her, and she did not feel comfortable getting up and going over to see, if there was anything in the attic. She just kind of left the dogs to bark at the door. And as live in this nice house. But the activity started to become a bit more aggressive in nature. One day, Jennifer was in the basement, which is where she kept her washing machine, a tumble dryer, did her laundry. And it should also be noted that at this point, Jennifer had learned that the basement flooded when it rained, and she was not made aware of that before she bought the property. The people that sold it told her that there had once been a burst pipe down there, and it kind of like made it very wet down there, but that they dried it out and fixed the problem, and there was never an issue. But it turns out that was a lie. She said that whenever it rained, it turned into a swimming pool down there. So that's probably another reason that the house was so cheap. There's always a reason a house is cheap. And on top of that, people died there. So anyway, Jennifer's in the basement doing her laundry when she hears a voice saying, "Get out, get out." That would be so scary. And then she saw rotten panels on the walls, because they were rotten because of the damp from down there, getting pulled off the walls, and the voice got even louder, telling her to get out. Obviously this frightened Jennifer, so she ran up the stairs, and as she did so, she said she felt something grab her leg. She said that she could literally feel fingers wrapping around the base of her leg, so she shook it off as hard as she could and continued to run out of the basement. And it was after this incident that Jennifer really came to the conclusion that she is now living in a haunted house. And during the following months, the strange activity would continue. One night, as Jennifer got home, she saw in the big picture window at the front of the house what looked like a silhouette of a man in her house, and her dogs were barking and going nuts. Jennifer felt really uncomfortable with going into the house, thinking that there was someone in there, so she called her brother. Her brother came over and they went into the house together, and there was no one there. But Jennifer swears she saw a man in the window, and the dogs were not happy. Jennifer said that when she arrived home after work, the dogs never barked. They just waited for her to open the door, and she could hear their little tippy-tapping on the lino floor inside, but they never barked at her, so to come home and find them barking was extremely unusual. Jennifer became closer to a co-worker called Sean Williams, and she began telling him about the strange things happening in her house. One day whilst at work, Sean noticed that Jennifer was walking kind of weird, so he asked her what happened. And Jennifer said that as she was going down to the basement to do some laundry, she felt something push her down the stairs and ended up hurting her ankle. She said she hadn't even actually started going down the stairs yet. She was just stood at the top on the landing area. She estimates about a foot away from the top of the stairs when she felt hands shove her on her back, and the next thing she knew, she was rolling down the stairs. She said she tried to grab the banister as she fell and ended up with a broken rib, a torn muscle in her shoulder, a lot of bruises, and a bad ankle. Jennifer believes that if she had just tripped, she would have just landed on the landing floor in front of her rather than going down the stairs, because that's how far away she was, and she's quite short in stature. But she said she was just thankful that she didn't break her neck falling down the stairs or anything, but the whole thing was extremely scary for her. Now Sean didn't really know what to make of this. Sean says that he feels like he's got a fairly scientific mind, but he was intrigued and curious as to what could possibly be going on, so they would have more discussions about the things this was happening. They couldn't find anything within the room that would be attracting the flies. They didn't see anything particularly wrong with the window, like they just had no idea why there was this like concentration of flies, and they were always just dead, and it would be every single day. She'd clean them up, go in the next day, and there'd just be tons more of them. And they didn't have an issue with this in other areas of the house. So she said we had flies in other areas of the house, but just like the normal amount any house would get. But for some reason, in this room, they were highly concentrated. She said that during the winter months, it was a bit less, but there was still flies in that room particularly. One day during winter, Jennifer and Sean were sitting watching TV late at night when their pantry door just opened on its own. They could see from where they were sat watching TV down the hallway where the pantry was, and in the pantry they kept an inflatable mattress on the top shelf. And as the pantry door opened, the mattress blew itself up, and it went across the hallway and hit the wall on the opposite side of the pantry. And they were just so confused by this because they felt like, well, firstly, how did the door even open on its own? How did the inflatable mattress device just all of a sudden go off? And they felt like it would make more sense if the inflatable mattress device had fallen off the shelf onto the floor, setting it off, right? That makes sense. But for it to stay in its position, it didn't fall to the ground, it just blew up in position and cleared a 3-foot hallway and hit the wall opposite. So even Sean was like, this is weird, like I would have expected it to fall and then inflate, and when it blew up, how did it not fall off the shelf? How was it just able to stay in position? So at this point, Sean is starting to believe there's something going on in this house because he cannot explain why this has happened, how this has happened. He said he didn't not believe Jennifer before, but he just always assumed there would be some kind of explanation as to what was happening. But now he wasn't so sure. As the days passed, the activity in the home became more frequent. In the middle of the night, Jennifer said she woke up and saw a man standing next to her bed. She said she couldn't see like a face or anything, it was just a manly figure, and she described it as being like a black shadow, but it was blacker than the darkness around it. So you could just see this outline of a man, and it was darker than the darkness in the room, which is very interesting because I have heard other haunting stories say exactly the same thing about a figure being darker than the darkness. Obviously this freaks Jennifer out, and she's just woken up to seeing what looks like a man in her bedroom, so she wakes up Sean, but by the time they look back, it was gone. But Jennifer's really freaked out by this, and Sean has to calm her down. During another night, just about a year after Sean had moved in, this is when he started to become fed up with the inexplicable activity. They were laying in bed asleep, and Jennifer says that she had gotten into a habit of always locking the bedroom door at night. It started when she lived alone, and she just continued to do it even when Sean moved in, and her handle was like one of those knob handles with a little push button to lock it. And she said that during the night she heard the doorknob turn and the lock pop out, so it had become unlocked, and it woke her up from her sleep. She describes herself as a light sleeper, so this woke her up easily and scared the crap out of her, which I don't blame her. I'm also a light sleeper, and if I heard what you know to be the sound of your door unlocking, I think we're all very familiar with what our locks sound like in our house. If I woke up to that, I would crap myself. But she eventually got back to sleep, and hours later, Jennifer and Sean would be both awoken this time by a loud bang. She said it was probably about 2 a.m. and it sounded as if someone had kicked the front door in. So Sean jumped up out of bed, grabbed his .45 gun from his nightstand and started searching the rooms of the house to see if anyone had broken in. He went upstairs, there was no one. He went downstairs and couldn't find anything. He then went outside and he searched the 5 acres of land to see if he could find anyone, and there was nothing. Not only was there no one in sight, there was nothing to suggest that a sound came from it, you know, like nothing was open, there was no damage. So they did not know where this noise came from, but it was loud enough that it woke both of them up with a start and a fright. And at this point, this really disturbed Sean because his biggest concern was protecting his wife. I think they're married at this point, and they're talking about having children. So, you know, he just wants to protect his family, but he's like, how on earth can I protect them from something that I can't touch? I can't even really see. Like, I don't know where this is coming from. And eventually the couple did have a baby boy, and they became concerned when their 3-year-old began exhibiting strange behaviour. He was sitting reading a book, not like a proper book with chapters, but you know, like a baby book with like a picture of a star and a picture of a dog, that kind of thing. And he was sitting playing with this book, and they noticed that he would turn the book as if to show somebody else what he was reading and talking to somebody, but there was no one there. Honestly, when the kids start doing it, you know something weird is happening. And for Jennifer and Sean, this was the final straw. They were like, no, 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 whatever's going on, this cannot start involving our children. Absolutely not. So now they're on a mission to try and seek some kind of professional help to get rid of whatever is in their house. So Jennifer reached out to someone that was kind of known to be a big paranormal investigator. However, he emailed her back and said that it wasn't worth his time. That must have been so disappointing when you're concerned for your children's safety the second time. The husband was searching for any electronic devices that could have been hidden by Jennifer and Sean, but they found nothing. Also during this time, one of the ladies said she felt like something touched her arm, and the other one said she felt like something touched her feet. But again, the house is empty of animals and other people at this point. So they kind of conclude that yes, there are beings in this house, and they perform a blessing where they burned sage and I guess did some prayers or something in the hopes to finally end the haunting, and that's kind of all they did, and it didn't really seem to do anything. And now with Jennifer and Sean having children, they said that they could no longer deal with the paranormal activity and decided to sell the house. They didn't want to risk the possibility of a physical attack on one of their children because, Jennifer felt like she'd been shoved down the stairs a couple of times, and she just didn't want to risk anything like that happening to her family. And they just did not even want to be in the house at all. So Jennifer's parents, they said that they would take over finishing the renovations to get the house in a state to be able to sell it, because Jennifer and Sean just did not want to be there with their kids. Now Jennifer's parents, they didn't believe in ghosts, and they were very skeptical of all these things that had happened, so they didn't have a problem going into the house and doing the renovations. But when they did, they had some experiences of their own. At one point, they were renovating in the basement, and apparently as you entered the basement, there was a nail on the wall, and from it hung a fly swatter. Jennifer said that they had never used this fly swatter. It was always left hanging on this nail on the wall because the fly problem they had was way too big to use a fly swatter. They always just vacuumed up the dead flies. They never needed to use it, so it just stayed there the entire time. But as her parents were down in the basement working, all of a sudden the fly swatter was at the bottom of the stairs, and her mum was like, "What's that?" And her dad said, "That's a fly swatter." And her mum was confused, saying, "But that was just hanging up by the door." And her dad was like, "Well, I don't know." Another time, her dad was there by himself, and again he was in the basement when he heard the garage door open above him. And then he heard someone walk into the house, into the mudroom, shut the door, and walk through the kitchen. So naturally he thought maybe Jennifer or Sean had come to the house, so he went upstairs to see who it was, and there was nobody there. He checked outside, and there was only his vehicle in the driveway. The garage door was shut, and it was just him at the house, but he swears he heard the garage door open and footsteps walking above him. Yet another time, her dad said that when he left the house, he shut the basement door behind him, but when he came back the next day, the basement door was wide open. When her parents had finished with the renovations, they put it on the market and had a realtor sell it for them. And after moving out, Jennifer was sorting through some photographs that she'd taken and found a few pictures of her dogs in the living room, and they have what appears to look like smoke surrounding them. Jennifer said that she and Sean didn't smoke, and that she tried to zoom in on the pictures to see if this was smoke, if it was dust or something like that, but it didn't appear to be that way, and she can't make any sense as to why there's this smokiness surrounding her dogs in multiple photos in the living room. Jennifer said that the realtor was aware of the reasons as to why they were selling the house, but she doesn't know if they disclosed this to the new owners who bought it been sold 2 or 3 times since they lived there, but she doesn't know if any of the new occupants had any experiences. Jennifer says that nothing had happened to her in her life up until she lived in that house, and as soon as she moved in, all hell broke loose. And as soon as she moved out, nothing has happened to her since. So that is the story of Jennifer Patterson's spooky goings on in her, what was meant to be her perfect little farmhouse. It is interesting. I think some of those you might be able to argue, you know, like with the music, you could be like, oh, well, it could be from a neighbour, like if it sounded quite distant. And like the flies, there might have been some kind of wood worm rotting kind of situation that was attracting them. But like doors opening on their own, hearing voices, footsteps when there's no one around, I don't know how you explain these things, and I just find it completely fascinating when I hear about people having these kinds of experiences, because I do believe that there's something going on. I don't know what that is or how it works. You know, I say I believe in ghosts, but I don't really know what a ghost is. You know, like I wouldn't know how to describe it. I've heard people describe it as like if something traumatic happens in a place, there's like a residual energy that's just kind of left there. So rather than it being like a spirit of someone who's passed on, it's just like this energy that's been left in a place. Maybe it's something like that, I don't know, but all I know is it seems as if there are multiple thousands, if not millions, of people that have had experiences that they just cannot explain. And it does make you wonder what on earth is going on. I'd love to know what you guys think, what you guys make of this, and let me know if you enjoy these kinds of stories too, because I will do more if so. I hope you enjoyed this video, you guys. Thank you so much